This video will contain full spoilers for 13 Sentinels Aegis for M. I have a different video up that is just if I think you should play the game or not. Spoilers, I do. But this video will have full spoilers for this game. I'm going to go through the things that I think are incredible. I'm going to talk about each character individually. This is a full spoiler video. Click off if you have not finished this game yet, because I truly think this game needs to be experienced blind. I think this game really benefits from not knowing anything about it going in. With that said, I'm going to push this button and we're going to get into this. So, let's go character to character and we'll start with Kurobe, of course. Juro Izumi Kurobe, great character. This Juro is great. I also love Juro Izumi. I want to preface this by saying I don't think there's any bad characters in this entire game. But Juro, he starts off kind of like awkward and docile. You know, he doesn't really do much with other people. He's got his own friend, which, you know, Kyuta. But you find out everything going on with Kyuta, and it blew my mind. His story is the generic anime main character kind of thing, right? Of like, oh, I'm not that important, but he actually is super important. All of these characters have a gimmick, I think, and they are so much more than that gimmick. And I don't take that as like a negative. I think each of them has like a gimmick's not the right word, like a cliche almost that they fall into, and then they grow so much more out of that. So Kurobe is, of course, the main character style cliche, right? But and in a lot of ways, he's the most important character. But I think all of them, in different ways, are the most important character to the story. He's your original POV character, but his journey throughout this game, he is multiple people, and he cannot help it. And when you find out everything going on with 426 and Kyuta and everything there, his journey is really compelling to me. And he grows beyond, very quickly, grows beyond the generic anime cliche main character that he may come off as at first. He winds up being a very good character. Still very docile for most of the game, but towards the end, very, very good. And of course, he was made to be docile. You know, the Juro Izumi from before he became Kurobe, the one that Megumi met, that Yakushiji Megumi met, fought for like 2 hours in a thing you're only supposed to fight in for less than 2 minutes. His brain got fried, you know? So I don't hold it against him. I wound up really liking Kurobe by the end of the game, and found his stuff to be really enjoyable. After that, we have Fuyusaki Iori. She is the first sight of her, you know, when you first meet her and get to see her POV. She is the schoolgirl that's in over her head, falls in love with a time traveler and doesn't know how to deal with it, you know? But she really comes into her own as well. The stuff towards the end of the game with her and Miwako is really good. The way that she has to deal with these memories of another person that cares deeply about a man named Juro Izumi, when she doesn't like Kurobe that way. And the way that she has to work all that out, I think, is really cool. Her interactions with Morimura Chihiro, very, very good. Fuyusaka may be my least favorite of the cast, but I don't dislike her at all. I actually really like her. And I guess that just shows how much I like this entire cast. Because she really pulls her own. She pulls her own weight by the end of the story. And I wound up really liking where she goes throughout the course of it. Yakushiji Megumi. Her story, her cliche, right, is the make a contract with the furred animal that is actually like maybe not a good thing, maybe a good thing. And of course, we learn it is a good thing. It did make the Daimyo stronger, but it also gave the crew the ability to upgrade their Sentinels, which made them way stronger as well. Because 426, again, a great, incredible character, was working in the background to try and help everybody. And I think her compelling story to me at first was her relationship with Izumi and how that affects her relationship with Kurobe. But her compelling like character motivation later on became the guilt that she feels using this magic gun to shoot all of her friends. And you really see it after she has to shoot Tomi. And it's really compelling, the relationship between her and Fluffy. And at the end, when he's like, you know, I almost felt like a dad taking care of his strong-willed daughter. Like, oh man, 426. Oh, And you know, 426 has a great payoff too. I think he is an incredibly flawed character, but one that I really wound up coming to like by the end. Kind of like Megumi. She makes a lot of bad decisions, but they wind up working out, and she fights for them afterwards. She is willing to throw herself out there because of the guilt that she still carries. And of course, it does pay off. You know, she gets to have her happy ending with Kurobe, which is very good. And she's accepted him as Kurobe, even though she also still loves him as Izumi, and his memories start to come back a little bit of Izumi. So it's a lot easier for her to just call him Juro, which makes sense. I get it. He's two people, but he's not. Sekigahara A is a little bit more of a quandary in a lot of ways. He is the time traveler, right? He is the amnesiac time traveler that doesn't know what's going on. Cliche. Of course, he's not. We find out time travel's not actually involved at all. It's just jumping between the sectors. But his story is that I don't remember what's going on. My memories are falling apart. I need to try and piece everything together. And in that way, it was really fun at the start. I think it got better as we learned more about him and learned that he actually kind of feels bad for using Fuyusaki Iori when he doesn't remember what she was to him before. And the way that all that pays off as well. His confusion that then leads into him learning that in his previous other him, maybe the way to put it, he was an assassin. And the way it all ties together with Morimura Chihiro is really good. I think that Sekigahara A's story wound up being really solid by the end of it. Goto Rinya! Goto is like... When I first met Goto, I was like, oh, I'm gonna hate this guy. By the end of the game, he was one of my, like, favorites. He's so good. He's a truth seeker, man. He just wants to know what's going on. But then you find out later that he is kind of driven by emotion because he loved Morimura and he wanted to protect her, but she's dead. And so instead of being like, you know, yeah, I should get vengeance on you because you killed her, it becomes, I should, but I'm not gonna because I'm smarter than that. And I find that really compelling as a character, the way that he has to step up to be the leader. You also find out later that, like, he used to have a relationship with Shinonome Ryoko, but he doesn't push for that during the story. He doesn't bring it up ever. And instead, he's, like, really compassionate with her while being cold as she's, like, falling apart, which is interesting to me. It's like this interesting dynamic of his character that I found really satisfying. So I like him quite a bit. He's way better than I thought he would be when first meeting him. But again, I don't think any of these characters are bad. I like all of these characters quite a bit. Minami Natsuno. Natsuno's stuff was some of the stuff that I disliked early on in the game. I think the idea of, like, she's the cliche of the girl that finds the alien, right? The person who finds the alien and has to try and protect them. I think hers wore on me a little bit, not because the story was bad, but because of how many times I had to go pick up the bag and then use the bag to pick up BJ. And it became like a routine to run outside and try to avoid the guy in black. And, you know, I think that could have been toned down a little bit, but that's like the only real complaint I have to this game. Everything with her and BJ is incredible. Everything with that is great. I love the way that pays off. It got me good when he sacrifices his own code to be able to let her use the Sentinel and keep all the information they'll need when they survive the fight because he believes in her, you know? And then in the credits, when he's back, and they're both like, yeah, you can use our nanomachines to come back with us. It's like, oh, my heart. Because the game sold me on that relationship really well. It sold me on how, you know, they cared about each other, even though he was just a scout drone, you know? And of course, you know, that Miura loved a different, not Minami Natsuno, but still, it doesn't matter, you know? He wanted to protect this version of her as well. And I found that really satisfying. And the way that she steps up to fight as well, so that, you know, because he gave her the Sentinel, and that means she has to defend it. She has to use it to protect people. I thought that was really good. Miura Keitaro is my second favorite character in this game, and I love him so much. Everything about his story is incredible. He is the, you know, in the way that Sekigahara A is the time traveler, Miura Keitaro is the man out of time. He's the one that's been pulled into the future and the future, right? And he's having to try and deal with it. He doesn't understand everything that's happening. He just wants to get back to his family. He thinks that his entire home has been destroyed by these kaiju. And so he's desperate, but he's not stupid. He's not just going to go cause a scene, you know? And the way that his story develops over the course of the game to becoming bound in a lot of ways to Natsuno and wanting to protect her, but also wanting to get back to see Chihiro again. It's just a really solid story. His friendship with Sekigahara A as I almost said mini Miura as the Sentinel drone, but also his friendship with Takatoshi. There's so much to love about Miura and the way his story is told, and I really like him. And not just because he's got a sick hat. I really like his character. My favorite character, though, is Hijiyama Takatoshi. Takatoshi doesn't get to do a lot as compared to a lot of the other characters. Most of his story is wrapped up in Tsukasa Okino, or Okino Tsukasa. He is... Takatoshi is, like, super complex, trying to deal with his own emotions for Tsukasa and not knowing how to do so, because he fell in love at first sight, basically, with Tsukasa when he thought when he thought he was a girl, and so he doesn't know how to deal with that, and that's a tough thing for him to tackle over the course of this game. But he still really cares about Tsukasa. The feelings haven't changed, and so over the course of the story, as he has to come to terms with that, with the fact that he thinks he's in the future, with Yakisoba Pan that he finds, I think his story evolves really naturally to where by the end of the game, not only did I feel like I knew Takatoshi, but I was rooting for Takatoshi. And there's like this undercurrent with him of he's always prepared to die. But when you look at the way things have gone in like the 2188 logs, he was the last one basically to die. And it's really unfortunate because, you know, he's willing to die for his loyalty to his country, but he's not even in that country anymore, you know? And so Takatoshi, I think, is a really interesting, tragic character. And I like him a lot. I really enjoyed him by the end of the game. The way that he basically just decided, it doesn't matter. I don't care. You know, if you're a man, that's fine too. If we're not in Japan, that's fine too. I'm going to fight to protect the things I care about. And I really respect that about him. I like him a lot as a character. Ogata Ninji. Ogata is the repeating day cliche, right? Throughout his story. But he's so much more than that. He's this really complex character that knows what he needs to be doing but can't keep his temper down. And his interactions with Hisoragitomi are so good. I was super sold on that relationship very early on, and I wanted it to happen by the end, so I was very happy when it did. Ogata is loyal, he's true, he does everything he can to protect his friends, but he's also not an idiot. You know, he knows what he needs to be doing, he just can't always force himself to do it. And I like him a lot. I think he's a really fun character to get through. He's like top 5 for me, for sure. Ogata's great. Hisoragitomi is a character early on that I sort of kind of disliked, a little bit like Natsuno. But I wound up really liking Kisaragi by the end of the game. Tomi, her arc with, like, hey, she's from the future, quotations around future, and, you know, she's trying to deal with the fact that in her mind, her whole family is gone, her friend has disappeared, her friend is kind of going off the deep end, and then now she's got these new friends, and she's trying to protect them and trying to help them, and in the middle of all this, people start vanishing, and everything starts falling apart. She's got these memories of, or she doesn't have the memories, but other people do, of Tetsuya Ida and the interactions with that. And it's so confusing for her, but it winds up coming together really well with her and Ogata. She winds up deciding to fight because it's what she wants to do. And I wound up really liking her a lot. Speaking of Tetsuya Ida, let's talk about Amaguchi Shu. Amaguchi Shu is the playboy rich kid cliche. He's got too much money, but he also is like this really, again, I know I just keep saying it, he's really interesting. His interactions with Miyuki Inaba, his interactions with Takamiya Yuki, his interactions with Kisaragi Tomi, they're all really solid. And I think my favorite interactions from him are the ones with Shinonome Ryoko, where, you know, she doesn't understand why this guy makes her think about Tetsuya Ida so much. Amaguchi is very much an idiot in a lot of ways, but he means well. He's earnest, you know? Where Ogata, like, hides the fact that he's an idiot and is actually, like, pretty smart. I feel like Amaguchi's, like, the opposite. And I think that by the end of the game, you know, when he figures out what the other him did, what Tetsuya Ida has done, he just has to keep going anyway. It doesn't matter because he's going to protect everyone that he can. And, you know, his struggles with the memories of Tetsuya Ida when it comes to Shinonome Ryoko or Hisoragitomi are really interesting to see, as, you know, he himself loves Takamiya Yuki, and she's the only one for him, but he's got these memories of his feelings for these other people, and it makes things really interesting, I think. There's also the fact that because of him, we get the Macross moment in this game, which is the single greatest moment in this entire game, even though there's some really good ones. The Macross moment with Miyuki Inaba singing in the background while you fight the Twin Tail EX. It's very, very good. I very much liked that. And I think he's just a really great character. I wish we'd gotten a little bit more time with him. I feel like his story moves really quickly, but I feel like that's probably because so much of his story pops up in other characters. And a lot of his story is dedicated to Tetsuya Ida, so it makes sense. Takamiya Yuki. I like her a lot. I don't like her story a lot. It's needed, right? You have to have it because she's the detective almost. She's the delinquent that has been pulled in to try and figure everything out. She's the one unraveling all these mysteries and figuring out what's going on with the androids and what happened to the North girl's bathroom and where Natsuno is. And her relationship with Natsuno is really solid. I like it a lot. Her stuff with Amaguchi is pretty good from her side. It's not as good, I think, from her side as it is from Amaguchi's side, but there's still some good stuff in there. She's very strong physically, but not so strong emotionally. Not the smartest character around. She's having to try and deduce everything. I like her a lot. I just think that her story was one of the more boring ones because for me, it was mostly just the reveals coming from her story that had me excited and not her story itself. I do still think it resolves really well. Her confused emotions about Erika Aiba and what she saw on the bridge, everything going on, and she's the most normal in a weird way out of all the people. And so she's just like in over her head here, but she keeps fighting because she has people she cares about. And I think that's really cool. She's also a beast on the battlefield, much like Ogata. Shinonome Ryoko, her story is probably my favorite. Even though I don't like her as much as I like other characters, I still like her quite a bit. Her story is probably my favorite. The stuff with her trying to figure out what's going on and her memories are slipping and she doesn't know what all's going on. Because of it, she has these memories from before that are leaking in, but DD426 is like destroying her mind. So she's constantly having to piece everything back together. The reveals you get with her, with Tetsuya Ida, are really solid. And I really liked the way her story went. I felt like it added a lot to this game. I also really liked the battles. I think that the way that this game works is really good. You may notice I'm on casual. It's because I'm recording this a day before, 2 days before, almost a day before. We're doing Game of the Year coverage, and I was running out of time, so I bumped it to casual. But if we just jump in a fight here, we can look at our Sentinels. I really like the way the upgrades work in this game. I love the way that you have this set of abilities and you can choose what you want to give each pilot. I think they're very, very good. I did grind a little bit, so my people are pretty stout, but it got to the point where I was no longer having to worry about protecting the terminal because nothing was getting close. And so instead it became, how quickly can I kill everything? Which was way more fun for me. I don't mind the tower aspect, the tower defense aspect of it, but for me it was way more fun to try and speed run every level, basically. I really liked the gameplay in this game. I thought it was really solid. I think that I still would have loved to see the mechs actually fighting. Like when you see the stuff in the preview window there, it's like, oh man, I would have loved to see that. But the fights are pretty long already, and it would have definitely made them longer. That said, definitely would have been worth it in my opinion. But not really that big of a complaint because I really enjoy what I got anyway. I thought this game was a ton of fun. I love that I can go over to the event archive and I can see a full rundown, a timeline of like, hey, when did this stuff happen and in what order? Because it just organizes everything. It's great. I love the mystery files and how you can run through all those and unlock all of those. I love it. This game is something special, and I think this game is probably going to wind up in my top 25 of all time. I've really, really enjoyed this game, and much like there are very few games that I have this with, this is one of those games I wish I could go back into blind all over again. And I won't ever be able to, you know? I don't have the memory altering abilities that this game has to be able to wipe my memory of this game and replay it again. There is a one-off line that I wanted to bring up that I think is really interesting. When they talk about the game that Okino Tsukasa originally based the code off of, the decode, Daimos, they mention in that game that the NPCs felt almost lifelike. That they felt like people. And I think this game has really sold me on these characters in that same way, where I feel like I understand all of these people, their vices, their joys, their interests. I feel like each and every one of them, I could just go down a list. Like, Kurobe loves movies. He loves to watch tokusatsu and kaiju movies and science fiction movies. Fuyusaki loves spending time with her friends and talking about boys. She likes to go out and eat. Yakushiji Megumi is head over heels for Kurobe, but she also enjoys cooking. She likes making things for people she cares about, and she enjoys spending time with Kisaragi, but she also just likes being by herself. Sekigahara A, he's like in that spot of his life where he doesn't know what he wants to do. He likes riding his motorcycle, but it's not even really his motorcycle. So it's just like, for him, it's all about the adventure of it, you know? And I can just do that for all of them because I feel like this game gave me a great understanding of the characters. And I haven't even talked about the soundtrack yet. The only thing I wish this game had that it doesn't have is an ability to just listen to the music, because the soundtrack in this game is really, really good. I could just keep going on about all the things that I love about this game. But if you have watched this and you still haven't played this, you still haven't beaten this, please go back and play it now. I know I spoiled a ton of things for you, and that's why I put the spoiler warning at the first. So it's your fault now. Just gonna be honest with you. It's your fault now if you got this far and you got spoiled. But absolutely play this game. This game is incredible and 100% worth playing through, in my opinion. With all that said, though, I've been Trey. This has been The Full Spectrum. Remember to always enjoy the full spectrum that 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim has to offer.